All right, folks, welcome on back here this Tuesday morning, November 14th. Just checking the date there, of course, here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop. A bit chilly here in Florida, might I say. Also, they've got the AC cranking. So, got me in sweatshirt form today. Great to see all of our students and members alike. Rod, Ron, Dan, Grant, Margaret, trying to twist my tongue early, our students here on the chat board. We had Lewis, Charles just before, one of our new trial members, Damon L. Great to see him. And great to see Wendy, one of our longtime students as well. A bunch of our longtime and returning students here. C2 here once again, Phil as well. So, folks, hey, let me ask you, what happened earlier today? What happened earlier this morning? I got to double check here because I got all my lights on. I don't know why my home office, I still look like I'm in a cave here, but bright. Should be good. What happened this morning, folks? You got to have your, finger to the pulse of the market and realize what's happening, not just week to week, but day to day. And we were forewarning this heading into this morning from yesterday, but every one of us should be saying, like Mark and Wendy are, the CPI report. Obviously, there's more earnings to be announced throughout this week and today and yesterday. And what you don't have the CPI report coming out every single week, every single day. You know, it's every month, mind you, but you happen to see a large reaction from that point up or down, depending on whatever the numbers are. So, I don't like crunch the numbers, go fully into, the finer details of this report. But it looks like they ended up doing better year over year and month over month. That's basically what happened. Grant says your sound is in and out bad. And Margaret says agree. Ooh, give me a quick sec here. Give me a quick sec. I don't change my settings. So I'm going to just log out of our live trading room. I'm actually going to log back in. So bear with me. On social media should be good to go across the board there at least. So stay with me just for a second. All right, try again here. Take two, test 1, 2 for Wendy, Grant, and all of us inside the live trading room. If we're good now, I may just go no webcam there and just stay on YouTube for the webcam, and we'll be good. All right. Grant says okay now. Rod says yes, it is. So it looks like I got the green light. I got the green light for my guy, Rich. So let's continue at least for right now. Now, hey, with that in mind, we've had the CPI report that came out today, right? So if you're not familiar with the CPI report, it's basically the inflationary report. Obviously, over the past year that we had, those numbers were going up and up and up, and we kept seeing larger moves within the market, namely on the way down. But with that, at least, hey, the market that we had over the last month even and going into today, I was looking for a move up. But damn, we ended up catching such a big pop right at 8:30. So let me show you this here really quick. I had a few questions come in from email earlier today just asking, how do you trade coming off the CPI report? So that's basically going to be the first focal point here. So obviously you could see at 8:30, a massive candle, big pop. And, from there, it throws you off a little bit because you're wondering, all right, well, am I chasing? At what point is this going to begin to pull back? When do we begin to see sell off? Right? So, sound terrible from Bill and Dan. Uh-oh. All right, folks, just give me a split second here. I have no idea what's happening. We're going to try and twist the gain a little bit. Test 1, 2. I might have to wear my bulky headset. Choppy is right. All right. Bear with me, folks. T-minus 60 seconds here. A rare audio issue for myself. So 1 second here. For all of us on the stream, just 1 second as well. I'm just going to reset all together. There we go. Now we are good. I guess we'll go no webcam at least from this point forward, make sure the audio is good here. So I was trying to point out how after we had such a massive candle on the SPY for the first couple candles there coming off the CPI report, the inflationary report, that we would see, at least a little sell off, right? A little pullback, little dip. Then from there, perhaps, run up higher. Well, it's easy to look at this chart and say, well, of course, the SPY kept moving up today. Of course, the markets kept pushing up once the markets opened up, at least. All right, well, how do we trade it? I mean, I had a few questions that came in over email. Once again, Traders Talk Q&A workshop. We have the chance to break down any question or trade you'd want to run by me. So here, I had a few questions just generally. How do you react to the CPI? And, well, this is where I could ask you. I can ask you the basics because that's what I focus on as a trader. There's so much crap on this platform here. And I don't mean that in a really bad way. I mean, every part on this platform, deservedly so, should be there. But I like to basically say between the fast moving numbers, the bright colors on the screen, it's a lot to digest, especially as a new member joining us, regardless of market experience, how much experience prior to coming to us you have. Hey, we have students that join us that have decades worth. Day trading is a different sport. You need to really be quick with your reaction. In case if you're there at the right place just at the wrong time, well, wrong time does not guarantee a move back up again or another test later on. We're not trying to hold on to a loser. So you got to be quick to get out if you're wrong. And that's where we need to focus on the basics. Because with everything on this platform, with the volatility of the market as a whole, obviously myself and Fausto making call outs throughout the morning, we're all kind of looking at a few different trades. So even at that, it's not even just one stock. It's a list of different trades that we're trying to focus on. Let's focus on the basics. When a stock breaks above resistance, folks, and it runs off of it, we'd like to think that resistance should become what? Okay. Support, right? Says Margaret, Mark, Sam, Grant, Dan, Rod, all of us here on the chat board, basically, right? So, of course. All right. Well, that's just a focal point. That's a cardinal rule, basically. So, in the midst of all the craziness and frenziness here, that's just something that you could rely on. The first test of a past resistance that got broken through should be a strong test of support. Okay. Let me ask us here really quickly. What time do stocks typically look to reverse throughout the morning? As you could see, the SPY even outperforming our famous cyber clock. Right now, breaking higher as we see, right? 10:15, 10:30. I had a question from Mark earlier asking, what were you looking for just before we started Traders Talk? I was looking for a top. I was looking for a pullback. Well, a large part of that was based off that 10:15 to 10:30 time frame. Now, that's where I could say, though, if it's not going to make that move, that reactionary move that you're looking for, that you're expecting, that, hey, if you are, and I'll say this in a positive light, of course, Bill or Charles or Wendy or Sam now or Lewis, of course, been with us for a long time, and Mark, and same deal, and Grant, and so many of us, if you were here every day, then you should realize if it's not making that big move that you're expecting, if it's not trending in your direction, well, best to get out or best to set a break-even stop. It's okay to lose and it's okay to be wrong. I feel, and I say this more on a very abstract level. If you look on social media, like on Twitter and all that stuff, if you see people out there trying to post their profits and whatnot, it's all like an attention scheme. Oh, look at me, look at me. I think everyone's afraid to post losses. And it's just to say, guys, if I take a break even trade, that means I lose no money. If I lose $5 on a trade, where I lose half of lunch. So, it's just to say there's bigger battles to fight over. And, the last thing I want to do is hold on to a position longer than I need to. Case in point, if you were looking for a pullback on the market just before, if you're looking for a drop, if you're buying puts, if you're shorting, well, you should have gotten out a little while ago. because obviously, as you could see here, the market's still pushing up. So let's just take it from the beginning. Let's take it from 9:30, the market open. One thing is to say is that I am very bullish on the market. I have said this over the last like 2-3 months at this point, heading into the end of this calendar year, into the beginning of this. Now, I think some more folks are starting to feel that way, but that's where I could tell you at the end of September, early October, I was wrong with that, move at the time. Right place, wrong time, perhaps. So as you could see, the last 2 weeks, we have smashed it. We have absolutely tore up the market as it's gone up. And with that, I am looking for a bounce. I'm looking for a buying opportunity. That could include a breakout, mind you. But here in the case of, the CPI report, it already popped so much at 8:30. You are thinking, okay, let's see a dip. Let's see. If not, then if it breaks out even more, then perhaps for resistance to become support. Now, where I kind of go over the SPY, I'm not going to do a whole analysis of the SPY as much. I'll show you my levels, but this will translate towards following select stocks that go with the market. Perhaps a stock like AMD, perhaps a stock like Tesla, and the ETF that goes with it, TSLL, right? I had a question on that too. So a lot of this will kind of go hand in hand with each other. Realize that. Even if you don't trade the SPY, it's all about the same principles that we tend to focus on here. So let me ask us, 9:30 market opens. If you are Jeff or Grant or Charles or a lot of our returning students here week over week, you should know this. Ready? At the market open at 9:30, we're sitting on our hands. We're not trading, right? First 5 minutes. What's the one thing I'm looking for in particular right at the opening bell? Right at 9:30 when the market opens up. Now, Bill and Mark are abbreviating inside our cybergroup trading room here, and Joyce agrees with them pretty much saying, the open price, the opening bell print at 9:30. Well, you could find this from time and sales even. I'm going to actually just show Bookmap for 1 second just to expedite this. Right at 9:30 when the market opened up this morning, this goes across the board for any stock you're looking at. Doesn't matter if it's large cap, small cap. Some small caps may not have a big print to be transparent, so then I just don't really like the stock at all. So here, right at 9:30, we had a 404,000 share print that came in at the price 446.23. Okay, let's break out the trusty old calculator here. Now, again, I discussed the significance of this price a lot further in our phase 2 stock course. I'm going to have a lot more time there to teach it. Let's just break out our calculator here and do a little math. 446.23 times, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get this number, 404,000. We'll just round up. Now, this is basically not just one person or two people. It's a conglomerate of orders that are getting filled and triggered. So it's just to say, at this singular price, at this one price, 446.23, there's over $180 million worth of volume. Would you say that's small money, or do you say that's big money? And I think you know where I'm going from here. I would say that's big money. Now, my best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up. Now, hey, maybe it's easy for old Josh here to tell you what happens looking at this already painted picture. I could be transparent with you. I didn't take this trade. I didn't jump in here. I wish I could say I did. I shoot straight. I just wasn't reacting in time. And I was looking more for a deeper pullback and then from there to get that better slingshot. So the market was so freaking strong here that after the first 5 minutes played out, 9:34, 9:35. So basically on this candle right here. And then from this point after, it dips a little bit. Well, surprisingly here, I was expecting a bigger pullback, see at least the next support level get tested. Well, it held so perfect. So that did signal at least the beginnings of a potential move up. And after 9:35, 9:40ish, perhaps even if you want to give it a few more minutes, we should be seeing more distinct movement within the market, direction overall. So that's where I could ask you, what time do we typically see reversals or pullbacks within the market? 10:15, 10:30, right? So from here, obviously it moved up, but I'll show you where I ended up taking a trade and how you could follow select stocks that moved with the market here at this point. But, otherwise, as the SPY kept pushing up, I held off for a little while. Basically where this pulled back, I felt that was my best opportunity to try and jump in, assuming that we'll have reversal time right around that 10:15, 10:30. From this very peak, it begins to make a bit of a pullback and drops. So I need to see support begin to build, and it was right around here, a little consolidation point, and I got to continue to see support hold. And then from there, the slingshot back up. So it took a little bit for it was holding under it. And then from there, once it pushed above it, that triggered my entry opportunity. Easy to say it moved up higher, but I was relying very heavily on the cyber clock. Just like, a lot of us wrote here in the chat board, Rod, Richard, Charles, Bill, Sam, Dan, Wendy, John, Lewis, Mark, Grant, all of us earlier said, hey, if reversal time is 10:15, 10:30, then technically when it's 9:50 in the morning, it's not really my cup of tea to take my first trade then, because really at 9:35, that's your window of opportunity beginning to close. So I don't like, having people like feel claustrophobic discussing that window of opportunity getting smaller and smaller and smaller on you. But really, the more I wait from 9:35, 9:40, I just feel like my opportunity dies off. So, you know what? If I do get in from 9:50, let's kind of think half glass full here rather than half glass empty. Technically, I still have 25 minutes until it's even 10:15, right? From 9:50 to 10, that's 10 minutes. From 10 to 10:15, that's 15. So that's 25 minutes worth of potential movement up. I think that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time to make money. So from there, easy to say it didn't shake me out or break lower. I would have either have looked for the next support level down or have taken the same trade again if it happened that way. Easy to say, whoop, right back on up. So here is where I'm basically correlating, and this is something I'm doing a lot more frequently as I'm personally trading the SPY. The SPY is not a stock, folks. The SPY is an ETF, right? And I think a lot of us know that. But let me ask us, if that's the case, what's this an ETF of? And for all of us on social media here, I had a little audio issue earlier. Looks like we're good to go across the board now. Got a lot more of us joining us here in this live workshop. I appreciate your participation. I want you to answer that for me too. What is this an ETF of? The S&P 500, right? So there is not direct price correlation between, the price 447 on SPY and SPX, which is actually the index. That's S&P 500 itself. Well, there's not perfect correlation with 047 here being 4470, as far as like, the S&P number here. So let me actually pull this up. I had this up just before. There we go. I was intending on showing this for Traders Talk here. So with the SPY, I plotted the S&P levels going into this week, not even today. I did this like on Sunday night. So we had such a big pop at the open. I was thinking we would pull back a bit. We didn't. Well, at this point, I'm thinking, wow, all right, well, we're getting pretty darn close towards our next set of resistance levels here. So I was basing the SPY move actually off of the SPX here, where I was watching this approach really what you would assume to be like a psychological price. It's a $500 price level, right? 4,500. There's, 3,500, 4,000, 4,500, 5,000. You would assume
those would be kind of like your whole number prices to a great degree for like a cheap stock, for a cheap dollar stock. Now that's as significant. So that's where Mark is asking me earlier in the private chat here. I was looking to go over it here for all of us. He's asking, were you looking for the SPY to drop due to the time of the day? Now, I ended up buying puts on the SPY, and I ended up getting stopped out just before as we started Traders Talk, because obviously we were not dropping at the time. So let me get that chat, Mark. I want to time this here pretty nicely. So at 10:48 Eastern, I wrote that, right? At 10:48, I wrote looking for the SPY to drop from here. And a large part of that was like with the timing of the day. It was already, 10:30 and afterwards. So you figure if it's not on the earlier side of 10:30, you're kind of looking at your stopwatch saying, okay, tick, 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 tick. All right, any day now here, let's get our drop off. So that does play in part with looking for a pullback and reversal. From that point, ended up seeing this begin to push up towards 4,500. And that's where I was kind of basing my level around, Mark, as far as buying the puts on it. But obviously, as you could see, it failed to make that big move that I was looking for. There's still time, and it might happen even as we're finishing up Traders Talk, perhaps. We might get that pullback over time, but every trade begins with the entry, and every entry is dictated by a big level. So as we go back to the SPY, well, we had the SPY. Oops, wrong chart. We had the SPY at the opening bell print here at the time, and as it started to move up, I felt pretty skittish trying to jump in because I felt like I was chasing it. Especially with how much we popped from last week into this week, and into this morning rather. And so I figured that we would get a more of a pullback. I wish I could tell you I took this right from the opening print from today, but that was the real sweet spot. So, hey, when the CPI numbers came out and the market popped, I don't know if anyone realized in the chat, I wasn't really too jumpy to call this stock, that stock out because, well, everything's moving. The whole damn market's moving at that time. So, you had a bunch of students making call outs on good stocks, but it's to say, like, I don't want to post more because I don't want everyone to get in even more of a frenzy, wondering, what am I going to trade? What am I going to look at? Look at this stock, that stock. Hey, when the market makes that big of a pop, you're just looking at your side list. You're looking at the stocks that you tend to focus on a day-to-day that can move well with the market, regardless of CPI or FOMC meetings or whatever the case may be. Even on crashes and the market's tanking, stocks that follow the market on the way down. So, of course, we're following the chip stocks, AMD, NVIDIA. Hey, if you don't trade those stocks, you can trade SOXL, the chip ETF. This stock, this ETF, as long as you have Bookmap level 4, it's very liquid. A great one to follow. You got Tesla, which made a strong move from earlier this morning. You have the ETF, TSLL. If you do well on these stocks day to day, then stick with your bread and butter. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the type of day that we're, having here today. PLTR. This actually was more of a dead duck at the open, surprisingly. It was very flat and choppy and wasn't going anywhere. But hey, certainly has made a better move now. And again, that was one from 8:30 that popped, but it's one that we've been trading for a long time here. Bill says he loves the Uber swing, not a day trade, but as a swing trade. Uber coming off very healthy earnings last week too. Yeah, that as well. Definitely more of a swing trade because you can make $1 on a much cheaper stock as a day trade. Swing trade, it's awesome. So that's where I just tell you, like, hey, you don't need to be trading the SPY as I'm calling it out. You could use that as your gauge to follow just, the stocks that you're looking at. When you're assuming it's reversal time at 10:30 and the SPY is still making higher lows and you're, at least in a position wondering, oh, is it going to keep pushing up? Well, you don't want to get greedy, mind you, but that's where you could at least play level to level and say, okay, as long as the SPY doesn't break lower here, there's a chance, there's an opportunity where you could see a stock continue to push up. So, let's actually just dip to a stock here. I wanted to jump to AFRM because that was one that was called out in pre-market. A few of us were looking at that. I don't have any level set for this trade at all. I have my book map open, but hand up here. You can't see my face. I fixed my audio, so I guess I had to kill the webcam. But hand up right now, folks. I don't know a singular level on this stock. I don't really. I mean, we'll start off by plotting whole number levels, 24, 25. I mean, that's just the first thing that you need to do anyway. But other than that, though, let's just right away look like what happened back from a few days ago, a couple days back. Looks like we had our closing bell print, looks like from a few days back on the 9th. What was that, on Friday? No, that was on Thursday. So either way, Thursday, it looks like just it was the last close that was around this area. So what price is that at? 24.86. Well, I'll tell you what, that complements $25 kind of nicely. It's about 14 pennies off. But in the grand scheme of resistance becoming support, well, this range of resistance here, basically this price, I'll just kind of expedite, but basically 24.86, that closing bell print back from Thursday last week here, and 25. Like that together could be a nice combination of a level. Now, let's take a quick look on Bookmap on level 4. Well, it's easy to say here at the market open, it does not drop this low. But yes, I would be plotting levels here, prior to the market opening. You have to. How could you not? At 24 and at 24.20, in case if it did drop back there a little bit, that would have been a huge support level to look at. So in hindsight, it doesn't go that low at the open. But that would have been a nice level to look at, confidently to see support hold. As far as resistance, there is really not much on the order book showing as an iceberg on the ask until 29. Okay. Oh, how about this? This could be funky. But a couple things with this. A, just because there's no iceberg here in pre-market until 29 or so, that does not guarantee that this is going to move upward. I need to let everyone know that. This right here does not guarantee a lick, doesn't guarantee a singular thing. Now, though, once the market opens, and if we see AFRM within the first 5 minutes make that pop, it allows you the chance to ask what if, right? It allows you the chance to say, okay, well, as a home run target, yes, that's a possibility, but there's going to be a lot more volume that joins the order book a lot more from this point. Now, with that said, let's take a quick look. So we had 29. Now, this was actually the interesting part. Notice that this is not at 29 on the nose, right? Look at that. 29.03. Now, that is pretty interesting. That at least leads you to ask why not at 29. So the closer it gets to that level, then you really want to be particular about this 29.03 being your iceberg top rather than just the whole number at 29. Okay, so market's going to open up here. Oh, pardon me. Recalibrate my book map here. Market opens up. Long story short, this essentially captures around the VWAP price, but opening print right here at 9:30, the opening print at 24.86, basically the same price actually as that close from the other day, right? Basically right there. 24.86, and this was 24.86, right? See the close price there in red, 24.80. That's the same exact price to the penny. So I just sloppily put my line there, but just to say, like, that definitely creates a huge point of interest. Not just that one price, the combination, really. You'd want to see 25 get blasted over and then to see the run. Okay, well, one last thing on this trade, because hey, it's easy to tell you what happened afterwards. We know this moved up, but we know it didn't move up to 29 just yet. So, maybe later today we could see a better run, or maybe throughout this week. It's just to say, well, before the market opened and before we saw that opening bell print at that same price, 24.86, didn't this already move over this area in pre-market? Didn't this already break over that price, Bill and Margaret and Grant? What color comes up on time and sales when a stock is breaking over a big level like that and moving up? Green, right? And what are we nicknaming green as? What's our nickname for green? Buying, buying pressure, right? So you're telling me that here in pre-market, we already had some good buying interest, not just, in general, but specifically at this area. What if history repeats itself? What if we end up seeing more buying at the same prices? What if this breaks over that price once the market opens up or, after the first 3 to 5 minutes? There we go, right, John? Says price goes up. So, for all of us here otherwise, not even just going up, right? Let's kind of use my catchphrase. When a stock breaks through a big level, what are we getting shortly after? You're getting a big move, right, Margaret and Mark and all of us here otherwise. Yeah. So, easy to say after the fact, obviously, but if you were taking the time in pre market to plot your levels out accordingly, not only plot the levels out, but realize really the direction and psychology that you're seeing in front of you. Stock is moving up. We follow the trend. Okay. We see a break over a big level. We should assume that that is some good buying interest. We like to ask what happens if we see more afterwards? What happens if history repeats itself when the market opens up? Now, again, with the whole market popping today, it's easy to say that a lot of trades looked like this and it popped shortly after the first 5 minutes. Really quick, PLTR didn't do that. It's only starting to move up now, right? So, really quick, let's just go through the same practice here. And, easy to say in hindsight just what happened. Hey, this chopped down at first, but it goes to show not every stock is going to trade the same, and not every stock will go with the market as much as you would want it to. You have to realize when it's not. And hey, I realized that yesterday on AMD. I was getting a nice bounce in the market at the time, nothing as big as what we had here today, but when the foot should be on the gas pedal, and when it's not on the gas pedal in general. So when you have that lack of that push, it's like, all right, well, clearly you're not in the right stock. So here, PLTR, I commented on this in pre-market just specifically with one price. Let me ask, actually, really quickly before I go to it, what price was I commenting on before the market opened up? Does anyone recall? You could actually go back in the chat and search and go through the very top of the chat from pre-market. So let me know what level I was focused on because I was writing it a few times in the cyber group room in the chat board. It was in the main chat. Give a few seconds here, about 30 seconds to a minute maybe, and just to dig through the weeds of our chat and see what was that level I was calling out in pre-market. I'll tell you, the answer is on my screen. The answer is on the screen in front of you. So if you see Bookmap, what appears to be a big level. Bunch of us saying 20. Sam saying it should be 20. Why should it be 20? Why should it be 20? Why should the answer to my question be 20? Alan says lots of red. He's talking about the heat map there. Well, that is the most, in a good way, obvious, most standoutish answer that you could give. There is a giant red line there, right? Whoop, right there. It's probably out there since earlier. 7 o'clock, probably a little bit before that. Okay. 113,000 shares. Okay. I'd say it's pretty big. But if you look at the chat board earlier, folks, you could scroll up and on your own chat, and just so you know, you could actually use the search tab like I'm going to show you here. I show this in our classes in phase 1. I show this. So if you take a look, you could actually search and PLTR right here early in the morning, not at 20. Let's double that. 2020. And Grant calling it out there too shortly after, and having a tough time with 2020. But why? Well, it's not on the heat map here. If you're only focused on the heat map, then this should be your answer. But we're not only focused on the heat map. We're focused on all of the other parts of the screen. That could be the VWAP. That could be the volume dot. That could be, of course, the COB column, which does paint this. But that includes the CVP column and the delta. But just for right now, even for those of us that may not have the official book map, the main version, let's just ride with this. Let's take a look at the number here. Let's actually break this down in the sense of what's bigger, 113,000? What's bigger, 113,000 or the number that you see here where my cursor is on the far right, this number, 371,981? What say you? So that is where I was very intent with calling out not just $20, which definitely is a big level. Of course, that's a big level. But that's not the only big level. And actually, there's a larger level than that in terms of volume, right? And it's this. So even without the extra column there, the delta, look at this. Look at the difference between the red and the green. The difference there. I'd like to say not only is there a lot of volume filled there, not only is that a big volume level in general. What do we nickname the red as, folks? Selling. Okay. Now, mind you, PLTR is not, or I'm sorry, mind you, PLTR is up percentage-wise here in pre-market going into the open. What's the trend from 8:30? As I peel back and show you the regular chart, from pre-market, from 8:30, from 8:45 to 9:30, what's that trend? Is it up? Phil says channeling. Margaret says down. I would say those are the two acceptable answers. You could say both. It's trending back down a little bit off the highs. With how strong the market is, of course, this is strong in terms of percentage and being up with the market. But I'd say channeling and down, either or. Certainly not up. Or certainly not seeing a bunch of green. Okay, well, if that's the case, then let's just plot a couple levels here. Do that 20 level, of course. But let's do 2020. Crappy year. Strong price level. So this had a lot of selling. I just want to note that there, the red. Now, when the market opens, I'll even just go one further. I'm not even going to show the heat map to you right now. The opening bell print at 9:30 this morning for PLTR made it easy for us. It was exactly at $20. When the market opened up at 9:30, we had a over a 2.5 million share print that came in at $20. I'm going to ask the question. I am. And I know you know the answer, but I want you to realize how simple this could be at times. What's a bigger size? 371,000 or 2.58 million? $2.58, right? 20 was not the larger level in pre-market. 2020 was. And it still is a really big level. It's the second largest. But Now we have a lot more significance to 20 since that was the opening print. Now, what I mean by that is, well, it smashed under 20, and I know the answer's on the chart here, but I want every single one of us to answer it. This smashed under $20 as soon as the market opened up. When a stock breaks below support and it tanks from it, we'd like to think that support should initially become what? Okay. So this had a tough time here at $20 to begin because we had a lot of selling pressure seemingly at 9:30, seemingly because the initial reaction was a massive spike down. So you would assume the first test would be the best test, right? Just like we covered in the beginning of this traders talk. And that was in relation to the SPY and how volatile that is. This is just your, run of the mill sideless stock that we trade. So, if I'm telling you to really focus on that for something uber crazy and volatile like the SPY, then it should be even easier to focus on here then, right? When the speed of the pitch is already slowed down compared to another stock I'm going over, should be pretty easy then to dictate, well, yeah, then this should be resistance then, right? And then, of course, afterwards, it did drop off. What time do stocks typically reverse, folks? Unless if a company came out with bad news. PLTR came out with earnings, I think, over the past couple weeks, and they've been a healthy company. So I'm just saying, there's no news that came out bad overnight. So it's just to say, well, even with them dropping, well, perhaps around 10:15, 10:30, you could begin to expect a point of reversal. Okay, that's easy to say looking at this afterwards. Where was the big level that this could have bounced off of? Great to see Michael J with us here as well. So, where could we see the strong bounce level? Well, you might say, oh, 1950, 50-cent level there. I'm not even as inclined to focus on a 50-cent price for a stock like PLTR. I'm more inclined to focus on your dollar levels anyway. So, like 20, $19, et cetera, et cetera. Again, much like we did with, SPY and kind of going back here, let's take a look at the closing bell print from the last couple of days that we had. So, I'm just going to look at this here. This was back from Friday this past week. This was from Friday, right? Right here. Yeah. 1967. So, especially for the end of the given week, the weekly candle, much like the daily candle, even furthermore at the weekly, you're going to see a big print, big price that comes out at the close. So 1967, that is a key level to watch. And then on top of that, just to say that yesterday, this closed even a few pennies higher. So the combination of those two prices with how much volume has been filled there, just looking at the previous close prices that we have, the combination of those two create a really strong support resistance to work with. So, hey, shortly after this ended up topping off at $20 earlier here, it pulled back and it failed to hold above it. It broke not just below the first level, but below the second one too, and a very clean break. When a stock breaks below support, drops off of it, support should initially become resistance. So I wouldn't be as bullish on this right away. I would expect even more of a fight than what you had here. But that is at least where you can say, all right, well, you are pretty much at 10:30. We're like right there. And the market is holding strong. It is pushing up or at the highs at least, even though I was looking for more of a drop off at 10:48 in the morning. Well, clearly the markets are still holding strong. And if this was already dropping, there's a good case to see a bit of a reversal. Ended up seeing this begin to push up. And from there, your cleaner move up to the next price. If this breaks above $20 here, folks, what's your next big level? If this breaks above $20, what's your next big level? Got a bunch of answers coming here in the chat board, folks. Look at the screen. What does the chart tell you? Yeah, I got the 2020. Let's not ignore that. That's still a very strong price to work off of, where that could be a complementary resistance level to $20 throughout this afternoon. So it's just to say, if this breaks above 20, well, 2020 is our next resistance. After that, perhaps I would assume 21, the next whole number, like we brought up before. I'm more inclined to focus on whole number levels, really, for a stock like Palantir. And I say that going forward. I say that going forward, as far as like kind of seeing, this move up higher in price. The cheaper it gets, I'll focus on the tinier levels. The more expensive it gets, the more I'll focus on larger levels. All right. I got one more request here. This was from Joyce, just asking, can you go over Tesla and actually the ETF TSLL? So, same deal. I'm going to go, it's the same preparation, same type of preparation, going over where the big icebergs are in Bookmap, the CVP column there, going back on the daily chart to see where the previous close prices were. Even furthermore, looking historically to see where there's any like chart levels otherwise. Just to say, Tesla, let's go back to my chart here. Let's see. I did it. I think I got it here. There we go. There's Tesla. So Tesla here, this had a couple of different levels to work off of throughout the day. And for something as expensive as this, I'm not even doing dollar levels. I'm doing it like $5 levels. 230, 235. I don't know if I plotted 240 up top because I didn't think it would get that high. Nope. Yep. So I would have done it if I felt like it was going to get there. But 230, 235, pretty straightforward. However, let's look on Bookmap. Let's go right back to the heat map here, and this is where I could show you where I ended up focusing in on one trade I took on Tesla this morning. And it was a nice entry in and out, but nothing. It wasn't like the biggest best. It wasn't. It was clean. I'm happy with it. I'm just, it wasn't the best mover of the day. So Tesla going into the market open had such a strong pop here, but I'm focused on 232. You do have a pretty large order out there on the buy side right here, obviously, and that lines up perfectly with 235, where there's just huge volume filled there. I'm also focused right here, and this is where we have a lot of support. We have a lot of support showing right here where my cursor is. So that's basically off the lows that we had, 230, 237, just a very strong chart level that acted as a bottom. So perhaps that could be a very strong bottom once again when the market opens up. Now I will say last thing here. I guess this adds more to 235, I reckon. So at the market open, your opening bell print right there, 235. So even further, more of a reason to follow that one price. It's just to say, though, when Tesla dropped off, when the market opened up, I looked the other way. I just moved over to the SPY. I was trying to capture that pop. So I wasn't looking at Tesla immediately. I guess I could tell you here, this is easy to say because it crumbled well. But again, I shoot straight. I have no problem telling you losses. It's just I ended up focusing in on Tesla when this was right around reversal time. I was looking for this to make a nice little bounce back up, and I was focused on seeing this break under and back over. More so here as I turned back over to Tesla, it was beginning to move back over. So I was using these levels here to act as a nice little support band and to see it bounce off of it over time. This was working off a strong downtrend line here off the highs, so I wasn't really out of the weeds just yet, because just as easily as the market could have reversed and pulled back, this could have crapped out with it. So I'm telling you, this was like one I was fortunate to see play out in my favor. But what I was looking for on this, Joyce, because she was asking about TSLL, and that's the ETF that follows this. So as this begins to puncture back over these levels here, 232 and a little over it, well, that's where I'm kind of focused on seeing the same happen on TSLL. So easy to say, yeah, it ended up bouncing back up pretty nicely at the same time. if you're following TSLL, I strongly recommend for you to follow Tesla. Um, Now, there's other stocks that have an ETF for them, but this trade's by far the most liquidity. So I wouldn't really suggest to like trade the other, stock ETFs. I think there's one like NVDL for Nvidia. Don't even bother. TSLL is cheap, it's liquid, it's the only real ETF for a stock that will trade. Now, otherwise, maybe if you focus on the chip sector, SOXL, then you could use this to follow like Nvidia, AMD, etc., because all of those stocks are in this sector as a whole. That's kind of the difference there. But with TSLL, actually, one thing I'll do one more, Joyce, because I don't want to look lazy and just say, oh, yeah, it moved with Tesla. It's just more so to say you want to plot the levels for Tesla because that's what this is really being dependent upon. Now, I will bring up Bookmap, though, for this, for the TSLL, and I'll see if there's any strong volume levels that you could really correlate from there. This looks pretty ugly, so right away, I'm not a big fan of how this looks. Let's trim the volume dots here and make them a lot larger. Okay, so you got your opening bell print here at least. But yeah, there isn't really much that you can gain from looking at this so far. Sometimes there could be, so it's not to fully dismiss it. A lot of proverbial buying around 1358, and then here at 1351, it looks like it tries to chip around those prices for a long time. It goes under and over 1350, 1351. Eventually, it makes that bounce, but it's really just kind of hinging on what Tesla itself does. So I'm more inclined to focus on Tesla as I look to trade this. Like, for instance, if Tesla has like a massive iceberg, and it didn't work out this way here, but in the event where Tesla were to have dropped down to 230, that would have been a very strong point to see TSLL make the bounce with it. Here, we just saw Tesla hit an iceberg basically at 236, pulled back under this one. You're going to assume the same to happen here on this trade, right? That's kind of all there is to it there on that one. All right, folks, current time is 11:57. We're going to finish up Traders Talk in just a couple minutes here. Let me know if there's any last questions that you got from me here from Clive on Facebook. I appreciate you, Clive, just asking, is this recording? Yes, it is. And actually, if you want to join us on YouTube, go right to youtube.com/cybertradingu. That will get you access to not just this Traders Talk recording, but all of the previous weeks that we do this workshop. So we're on YouTube and, of course, inside our live trading room every Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern. Do the full workshop here every morning. All right, so I'll tell you, just take one last look back on the SPY, I guess, just on the markets to see how we're doing. Looks like we are getting that pullback that I was looking for closer towards 10:30-ish, 11 o'clock. So let's just kind of take a look to see what happens here at the S&P. Oh, whoops, I got to go back to my chart here. I might have lost it, hopefully not. Nope, not that. I got a bunch of these charts I got to sift through. It's being a pain in the ass right now. All right, I had the SPX chart lined up with all the different chart levels up there. I thought I had it up just before. I lost in all my. One sec. Let's see if I got it here. There we go. That's it. Hey. All right, so here we are. It looks like we ended up basically holding resistance right at that 4,500 level. And honestly, the two prices, the one above and below, these are actually fib levels that I look back on from like the daily, weekly chart. So I found that pretty interesting how that complemented 4,500 on the SPX like that. So wouldn't shock me to see more of a pullback here heading into this afternoon now. Obviously, we'll see if we continue to get a higher low over time. If not today, then tomorrow. I'm sure we'll get more sell-off at some point before another push up higher. I'm very bullish on the market long-term, folks, or long term. It's funny. My long term is not everyone's long term. That could be short term to some traders. But heading into the end of this calendar year, into the beginning of next year, I do believe that we can get a really strong bull market, and definitely this is a good indication of that. So we've been saying that for the last few months here, last couple months, and hopefully a lot more to come from this point. Folks, we're going to finish up right now. I'm going to jump onto a couple of different calls now. Some new gold students of ours. So, hey, let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to shoot me over a quick private chat inside our live trading room like Mark and Joyce did earlier. Let me know if you have any questions. Just instant chat me, private chat me on the side. I'll be more than happy to answer you and help you out on the side there. But email address, josh@c2trading.com. For anyone on YouTube, social media, we encourage you to join us inside our live trading room here. There we go. Should have had the QR code up the whole time. Pardon me for that. So if you're fancy with your phone, scan that QR code on our stream on social media. Get you access to a week-long trial inside our live trading room. Our next audio broadcast will be at 2:30 Eastern. Just scanning the market once again, building up a new watch list here towards the market close. So we look forward to seeing you there alongside all of our students like John, Kathleen, Grant, Leda, and all of us otherwise. So hey, best of luck trading. And again, we'll be back on here just in a little bit. Take care.